Okay, so have you heard about this DeepSeek V3 thing? It's like this open source large language model, and people are saying it's really shaking things up.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it mentioned. It's been getting a lot of buzz,
Yeah, the hype is definitely real. Some people are even saying it's as good as or even better than GPT-4 and Claude 3.5 Sonnet.
which is a pretty big claim, especially since it's supposed to be much cheaper to use.
Exactly. So that's what we're diving into today.
Sounds fascinating. Where are we getting our info from?
We're looking at a Reddit discussion from our LocalLLaMA.
Ah, right from the source.
Yeah, the thread is titled Notes on DeepSeek V3. Is it truly better than GPT-4o and 3.5 Sonnet? And it's packed with insights from people who are actually using these models. Comparing DeepSeek V3 to GPT-4o, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, even Google's Gemini.
Okay, so first-hand accounts, not just theoretical benchmarks.
Exactly. Like,
Mhm.
how are people actually using these models in their daily lives?
That's way more useful than just looking at some abstract test results.
Right. So let's get into it. The original poster, Sunil Kumar Dash, ran some tests and found that DeepSeek V3 is really good at reasoning and math, like even better than GPT-4o and Claude 3.5 Sonnet.
Interesting. So it seems like different models might have different strengths depending on how they were trained.
Yeah, it's definitely not one size fits all. And when it comes to coding, Claude seems to be the best, followed by GPT-4o. DeepSeek V3 was a bit behind on that one.
Makes you wonder about the training data and what each model was optimized for.
For sure. And writing, well, Claude slightly better than DeepSeek V3 in terms of quality. But get this. Some users said that DeepSeek V3's writing style and responses were super similar to GPT-4o's.
Almost like it was mimicking it.
Yeah. So it makes you wonder, right? What data was DeepSeek V3 trained on? Could it have been using GPT-4o generated text?
That's a good question. And if that's the case, it raises some ethical questions about using data scraped from other models.
Totally. So the big question is, who should be using DeepSeek V3? Sunil Kumar Dash thinks that if you're already using GPT-4o, DeepSeek V3 could actually be a good switch, potentially even giving you better results for some tasks.
And at a lower cost, presumably.
Oh, for sure. The cost effectiveness is a big deal, especially if DeepSeek V3 can match or even beat GPT-4o's capabilities at a fraction of the price. It could be a game changer.
Definitely. Especially for people who haven't been able to use these kinds of models before because of the cost.
Absolutely. Another user, official Hash Panda, pointed out that DeepSeek V3 is a fantastic option for building AI apps because it's so affordable and it performs really well.
That makes sense. But what about Google's free Gemini models? Those are available on AI Studios, right?
Right. And the official Hash Panda mentioned that those are a strong competitor too, so it's not like DeepSeek V3 is the only good option out there.
It's amazing how quickly this field is evolving. There are so many options to choose from now.
Totally. And another thing, this is from user Slumdogby. They pointed out that even though Claude is a year old, it's still the best when it comes to coding. So it's not always about chasing the newest model.
Right. Sometimes the older, more established models are still the best choice for certain tasks.
Exactly. So let's talk about what DeepSeek V3 is really good at. Apart from being budget-friendly, it seems to be a great fit for certain tasks, like User Teacher Secret found it really effective for agentic workflows.
Agentic workflows.
Yeah, basically tasks where the AI acts as an agent to do a series of things. Like, imagine you want to automate a bunch of steps in a process.
Oh, I see. So DeepSeek V3 might be good at handling those multi-step tasks.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. And this is exciting because it could open up new possibilities for developers who couldn't afford these high-performing models before. Imagine all the new AI applications we could see.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
But no model is perfect, right? What are some of the downsides of DeepSeek V3?
Well, one thing that seems to be a bit of a problem is long-form writing.
Ugh. Yeah, long-form text generation can be tricky for AI. It's hard to maintain consistency and coherence over a longer piece of writing.
Exactly. Users have reported issues with repetition, factual errors, and even trouble keeping a narrative consistent. Like Teacher Secret, Biggest Cans, and Orath. They all mentioned running into problems with repetition in creative writing tasks.
Repetition, huh? It sounds like DeepSeek V3 might be getting stuck in a loop, reusing the same phrases or ideas.
Yeah, it seems like it might be relying too heavily on what it's already generated or struggling to come up with truly original stuff. It's a good reminder that even though AI is amazing, it still has its limits, especially when it comes to creativity and nuance.
Absolutely. It's not a human replacement, at least not yet.
Right. And get this, the repetition issues were happening even when users tried adjusting settings like
DRY.
DARY. Yeah, it stands for don't repeat yourself. It's a feature that's supposed to minimize repetition. But even that wasn't always enough to solve the problem.
So it might be something more fundamental about how the model is designed or trained.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, and one more funny thing. User Certain Code said that DeepSeek V3 sometimes randomly switches to Chinese.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah. So that could be a bit of a problem for English-only users.
Definitely. It sounds like it might be a bug or something related to the training data.
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure. So while DeepSeek V3 has a lot of potential, it's not perfect. A lot of users still prefer Claude 3.5 Sonnet for everyday tasks because the writing is better and the overall experience is smoother.
That makes sense. In the end, it's about finding the tool that works best for you.
Totally. And one user, Nurkashir, gave this really helpful breakdown of how different LLMs perform for coding in different languages.
Ah, that sounds interesting. What did they find?
Well, for Python, all the models were pretty much the same, although Claude was slightly better. But for React and Node.js, Claude was the clear winner, followed by GPT-4o and then DeepSeek V3.
Interesting. So it really depends on what language you're using.
Right. And for Go, everyone was about the same, although GPT-4o is a tiny bit better.
So some languages are easier for AI to handle than others.
Yeah, it seems like it. But then for C#, Claude and GPT-4o were better than DeepSeek V3, although all the models weren't that great for C# overall. And for C and C++1, they all struggled. DeepSeek V3 could convert loops to AVX successfully, but ran into memory alignment issues.
Those lower-level languages like C and C++ can be tricky for AI, I guess. They're quite complex.
Yeah, it sounds like they might pose a challenge for the way LLMs are usually trained.
Makes sense. So we've talked about performance, but what about privacy?
Right, that's a big one. User Thurl Gentlefox brought up the fact that DeepSeek V3 logs API activity and might be using user data for training, even in the free version.
Oh, wow. And that's different from GPT and Claude, which have opt-out options, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's something to be aware of, especially if you're concerned about data privacy.
Definitely. We need to be careful about what information we share with these models.
For sure. And user MaginVegeta123 emphasized those privacy risks too, saying that people should avoid using DeepSeek V3 for any work-related tasks that involve sensitive information.
That's good advice. It's important to understand how these models handle data before you start using them for anything important.
Absolutely. It's like a trade-off, right?
Yeah.
Cost, performance, privacy. You have to weigh all the factors.
Exactly. And in the end, it's up to each individual to decide what's most important to them.
So it sounds like DeepSeek V3 has a lot of potential, but it's not without its drawbacks.
Right. It's exciting technology, but we need to be aware of the limitations and potential risks.
Totally. It's like anything new, right? We have to learn as we go.
Exactly. And this is just the beginning. The world of AI is changing so rapidly, it's hard to keep up.
It's a wild ride for sure, but that's what makes it so interesting.
I totally agree. So what's next? Where do we go from here?
Well, we've covered the good, the bad, and the maybe slightly concerning aspects of DeepSeek V3. Now let's look ahead and see what the future might hold for open source LLMs.
Sounds good to me. Let's dive in. Imagine, researchers who don't have a ton of funding. They could use DeepSeek V3 to analyze huge data sets or run those complex simulations that were just way too expensive before.
Right. It could really level the playing field for scientific discoveries. And what about independent developers? They could build all sorts of innovative AI apps that were previously out of reach.
Totally. It could unleash this wave of creativity, right? People from all walks of life using AI to solve problems, start businesses, even just express themselves in new ways.
It's like giving everyone superpowers. But we all know with great power comes, well,
Your responsibility.
exactly. As AI becomes more accessible, we need to be really mindful of the potential downsides and really have those open and honest conversations about the ethical implications.
We can't just blindly adopt new technology without thinking about the consequences, right?
Absolutely. So to recap our DeepSeek V3 deep dive, here's what we've learned from the LocalLLaMA folks.
It's definitely a powerful tool, and it's cost-effective, that's for sure. And it's got clear strengths in reasoning, math, and AI app development.
It's definitely giving GPT-4 a run for its money in certain areas, but it's not a perfect replacement. The long-form writing still needs some work, and those free alternatives like Gemini are pretty competitive.
And we can't forget about those privacy concerns, the data logging thing. That's definitely something to keep in mind.
Absolutely. Users need to be aware of how any LLM handles their data, especially when you're dealing with sensitive information. Being informed is key, especially with how quickly things are changing.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So this deep dive has really shown us how dynamic and exciting the world of large language models is. What are your biggest takeaways from all of this?
For me, It's the potential for disruption. Open source LLMs like DeepSeek V3 could fundamentally change how we use and access AI, and that's going to have ripple effects everywhere. It feels like we're at a tipping point. The future of AI is unfolding right now.
And it's full of possibilities.
And challenges.
Mm-hmm.
We need to approach this new era carefully, making sure that AI is developed and used responsibly and ethically.
That's the key. It's not just about the technology itself, it's about how we use it.
It's a conversation we all need to be a part of. So let's wrap up this deep dive with a final thought.
How might this rise of affordable and powerful open source LLMs change the future of AI? Think about a world where cutting-edge AI is available to everyone, not just big companies and institutions.
It's a question that really gets you thinking, doesn't it? And as we move into this new age of AI, it's a question we should all be asking ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like there's no going back now. We've opened this door, and AI is here to stay.
Yeah.
But we can definitely shape how it's used,
Oh, absolutely. Like, think about the potential for grassroots innovation. People using AI to solve local problems, create new businesses, express themselves in ways we haven't even imagined yet.
Right. It could really democratize access to knowledge and education, level the playing field in industries that are dominated by big companies, empower individuals to actually make a difference.
Think about personalized learning, tailored healthcare, even creative tools that anyone can use to, like, express their artistic vision.
It's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
But like we talked about, there are also some challenges. We have to be aware of potential biases, the impact on jobs, and of course, protecting privacy and individual rights.
You're right, all important things to consider. AI is becoming more powerful, and it's everywhere. So we need to have those conversations, the tough ones, about responsible development, ethical use, making sure these technologies benefit everyone, not just a select few.
So as we wrap up our DeepSeek V3 deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from this conversation?
I think the key takeaway is this. The future of AI is being written right now, and we all have a role to play in shaping it. It doesn't matter if you're a developer, a researcher, or just someone who's curious about this stuff. Staying informed and engaged is more important than ever.
That's a great point. This is bigger than just tech. It's about our future as a society. We have to ask those tough questions, think about the potential benefits and risks, and work together to ensure that AI is used for good.
It's a call to action for everyone to get involved, stay curious, and be a part of this incredible journey. We're navigating the uncharted waters of artificial intelligence.
Well said. So to our listener, keep exploring, keep asking those questions, keep the conversation going. We're creating this future together, and it's going to be an incredible ride. That's it for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.